Now, Elizabeth Wydra from the Constitutional Accountability Center has been working with a group of Democrats who are one of those who have filed or
Yes,
planned
have filed,
a
last
lawsuit against the President of the United States for being in violation, as I understand, of the Constitution and the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution.
Yes.
So I didn't think you could sue a President of the United States.
Oh, yes. And many have.
Okay.
But this is the largest congressional suit in history. We have nearly 200 members of the House and Senate who have sued the president for...
All Democrats.
Yes, we certainly hope that we'll file an amended complaint with additional plaintiffs, and we certainly hope that there will be some Republicans who join us.
And what is the gist of the lawsuit? What is your contention?
So the Foreign Emoluments Clause of the Constitution says that the president cannot accept any foreign emoluments, gifts, presents of any kind, whatever, that's what the Constitution says, without the consent of Congress. And now the way this has worked throughout history is that presidents have come to Congress and said, for example, President Lincoln, received these tusks from the King of Siam. And, instead of accepting them, he checked with the government and either, didn't accept them or deposited them in the state treasury.
Andrew Jackson, some gold coin?
Yes, exactly. So Andrew Jackson had some medals and... And the presidents go to Congress, or they determine on their own it's not acceptable for them to receive these foreign payments. But the Constitution is absolutely clear that you cannot accept any of that foreign money without the consent of Congress. And Donald Trump has refused to either divest himself of these foreign investments or go to Congress to get consent. And that is what the Constitution requires him to do. In plain terms, written into the text of our founding charter. It's very clear. And so these members of Congress are coming to court to enforce the Constitution, to say that Donald Trump is not above the law, even though he might think he is. He is not. He's not above the Constitution. He's not above the congressional oversight that's written into the Constitution. And so we're going into court. We filed last week in the D.C. District Court, Blumenthal and Conyers versus Trump. And we look forward to, as Donald Trump would say, see you in court.
It's so funny. Like, if you look at the history of Donald Trump and sort of who he is and how he got to where he is, I mean, he knows the court system very, very, very well.
He's used it to his advantage.
He really has. So, like, bringing a lawsuit against a guy like Donald Trump, I think is a smart thing to do. But also, you got to know that, like, he knows what he's doing in that courtroom.
Well, I don't know if his success since he's become president has really shown that to be true.
I should say, yeah, certainly.
His travel ban has not fared very well for absolutely just reasons. But I think, when the Constitution is clear, and here it is, he needs to be accountable. And he hasn't been accountable to Congress. And so this is really where the courts step in, because you need someone to say, you need to comply with the Constitution, go to Congress and be transparent about what all these investments are. Because honestly, we name quite a few of them in the complaint, and many of them have been reported on. But that, I'm sure, is just the tip of the iceberg. There is so much that we don't know, and that transparency is key.
I was going to ask you about that. How do you find out more through his tax returns, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So hopefully we will get discovery in this case and get his tax returns, but also get more information.
This could be the key to getting his tax returns.
Absolutely.
But he would have to release them if this case goes forward, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
There are other lawsuits I mentioned. The district attorneys of Maryland and the District of Columbia have sued on a similar issue. So has Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington.
Yes.
And so have maybe that's the same lawsuit of some Washington businesses who feel they're adversely impacted by Donald Trump's advantage of having his name on one particular hotel and restaurant. So are these all lawsuits, are they all related? Are they all looking at the same issue?
So they're definitely focused on the same problem, which is that Donald Trump is receiving these payments from foreign governments in violation of the Foreign Emoluments Clause. And then in some of the other cases, not in ours, because there's no congressional consent provision in the Domestic Emoluments Clause, but some of these other suits raised the domestic emoluments clause, which says that the president cannot get any payment from federal or state governments except for his salary.
Yeah.
So with the GSA lease of the Trump Hotel here in D.C., there are some questions about that as well. And some of his new development ideas for the country. But I think they emphasize the way in which so many constituencies are harmed by Donald Trump thumbing his nose at the Constitution when it comes to his financial conflicts of interest. We need to be sure that when the president acts, he's acting on behalf of the American people's best interest and not on behalf of his own pocket in his own best financial interest.
So you can sue the president of the United States. What if this, please, let's hope it works, right? I mean, please God, the case moves forward and the judge rules in your favor. Mm-hmm. This is not a criminal offense, correct?
Oh, no. This would simply be...
So what would the burden on Donald Trump then be?
So we are asking for the court to first declare that he is in violation of the Constitution and then require him to receive the consent of Congress before receiving any further foreign payments. So it's just very simply
in other words,
asking
comply
him to
with the law.
And, to be honest, why not go to Congress? You don't think you can get the votes? What do you have to hide?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and particularly with this Republican Congress, they'll probably let him get any gifts that I would imagine that he wants.
But, we need to have that oversight. That's the constitutional role that the founders thought was so important. And, these emoluments clauses might seem like weird words to us today, might seem obscure, but they were absolutely crucial to the founders. They talked about corruption on a quarter of the days of the Constitutional Convention. They were deeply concerned about it, concerned about foreign influence on our democracy. And the Foreign Emoluments Clause was something that they saw as key to the very survival of our American democracy.